Sorry, everyone. We're a little bit different today. I'm coming to you live from a project. So we're doing some testing for asphalt today, trying to figure out how to do NDT. So might see a little bit different format this morning. I think we've got Kevin queued up for you today to go over the ATM. I can't even see how many people's on here or who I'm talking to, but do we have anybody from Headlight on?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Les, it's Lauren.
Good morning.
Hey.
Here, I'll give y'all some views of the project site here. We got some asphalt going on in the background there. Lots of traffic backed up here, typical construction stuff. I guess what we're going to do today, Kevin, are you doing the ATM training? Is that what you decided to go with?
Yes.
All right. So we were kind of looking through. I had one of the districts or somebody email me the other day wanting it was a consultant asking about kind of step-by-step guide on how to do a headlight ATM. And so I looked through quickly on all of the stuff we've done so far, and I couldn't find where we had done a dedicated training on that. And so I kind of put together some of it, and I had plans to do that today, but then we got called out to come do this NDT testing in District 08. And so Kevin agreed to go through the training for us today. So hopefully he's ready for that and got that all prepared. So I think we're going to just kind of give you a step by step on what's required to fill out an ATM in Headlight and kind of some of the stuff we've learned so far on how that will work. And, some of we've gotten a lot of feedback from like districts on, hey, if you submit this, there's certain things you have to do for it to show up for us to sign and that kind of thing. So we wanted to give you some of those things that we've learned kind of as we've gone through this process. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kevin and let him go through the ATM training. And then later on in this, we can do maybe a Q&A or if Headlight had something they want to say, we can do that later as well. So Kevin, I'm just going to toss it over to you.
Okay. So how y'all doing? I'm Kevin Barbe from E-Construction. We're going to go over the ATM. It's the Audit of Testing and Materials, formerly known as 2059. So we're going to go into it and how to get into it, how to create one from Headlight. So let me share my screen. Everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So then basically what we got here is, so the benefits of using the ATM is so we could do everything digitalized, makes the process faster. Is you able to attach supporting documents directly to the 2059? And then, so the way we're going to do it is when you're in Headlight, there's two ways you can get into it. You could do it from Fieldbook or you could do it from the materials lab. I'm going to show you both ways. So the first way is going to be through the Fieldbook. So you're going to go to the navigator and then you're going to go to forms. And then once your forms come up, you're going to click on this green button right here. And then, so you're going to choose the form you want, and it's going to be LA DOTD Audit of Testing and Materials. And then when it first comes up, and then the name, you can name it basically whatever you want, but in the beginning you can leave what they have. And then when you do your final one, you want to name it the final ATM. That way you know it's the last one. So once you do it, we'll create it. And then once you create it, you can go to fill out form. All right, so now that it opened up, you see it brought in whatever project that you've been working on. I'm using the H.00 test project. So it brings up that. It brings over like the type of work, the parish, the vendor, the vendor's ID, and then your location and the project engineer. All that should come over automatic. And then once you go there, then you could come down and it shows you the project engineer, where the project engineer was signed, where the district lab engineer was signed, the area engineer. And then you could go and you can uncheck these boxes right here, and it'll give you different things and it'll show you. So like this is your summary of all your materials that you tested on the project. It shows log, passed, received, pending. So what you want to make sure is everything says basically passing. And if not, you'd have to do some investigation on why it's not saying passing. So, and if a sample's failed, you got to do errors in emission. We'll show you that. So you just would go through this and then it would say logged, and you got to see why it wasn't in the passing status. Just keep in mind for asphalt, it's always going to say logged or received, because asphalt is not in Site Manager at this point. So it's never going to come back with a pass or fail sample. So what people's been doing is just, you can upload, if you go to LaPave and you print out your pay, and you print out your roadway report, you can add it to that sample. And so the person checking the 2059 can see that it was added to that sample, and it was in that particular sample, and they can see that, you have all the information you need for the asphalt. Then if a sample fails, you have to click on errors in emission. So then we'll go down. And these are your errors in emission, showing you the samples that you either had an error or you had a failing test. And then it shows you the dispositions of failing sample. And then we'll go into and we'll click into errors of emission. So then if we go to the materials, this is how you would get to it from materials. You go to forms, then you hit the little green plus. You would choose your project. Like I said, then you choose the form. Then you can name it whatever you want. And then just the final one, you want to put final ATM, so you know that's the last one. Because it'll keep a running track of every one you create.
Hey, Kev, I got a question.
Yes.
Why would you be creating multiple 2059s?
So when you create it the first time, like when we'll go back, you see how you got here, you got to check to make sure that you're that everything is in a pass or fail thing. Because if it's in logged, the 2059 is not, the lab's not going to sign off on it, because you don't have, it's supposed to say pass or fail. If it's in logged, then you got to find out why that sample wasn't completed. Do you understand?
Okay.
So you would create the first one to see why your sample is not pass or failed. If everyone, like, see how you say log. So you would have to go and do research on why is it still logged and the sample wasn't passed. Kind of the same thing you do with Site Manager, Daniel.
Yeah, okay.
And then
Hey,
this is just,
hey, Kevin,
yeah.
Can I talk about that for just a second? So
Yeah.
we want everybody to understand, like, you don't have to have just one ATM or one 2059 in your project. You you can have multiple, and like, so you're going to run intermediate ATMs throughout the project, and especially at the end when you're trying to figure out, um, like Kevin's saying here, like what samples I need to take care of and that stuff. So the main thing to take away from that is you can have, 10 ATMs in your list of forms, but the last one just needs to say final, so we know that's the one that we're going to be signing off on. So anyway, that's
Okay. So at the bottom, as you see right here, so where it says add file, that's where you could add all your CDs, your CAs, your asphalt stuff. If you want to add it all in one file, that would be right now. There's no particular one way. It depends on the districts and how they want it. Some districts might like it in the individual sections. Some districts might want it all in one. So you'd have to get with the district lab engineer to find out how they like it. But you can add, you go in here and then you could add any file from your computer that you want. You can add to here. It could be CCs, CAs. You can add all like the asphalt pay. And when you add it, it'll show up in here. And then if you go to materials, dashboard, we'll select the project. And then this is how you would get to the fail and samples. So as you see right here, when it comes up, you got sample plan, samples, fail and sample. When you click on fail and samples, it will pull up all the fail and samples for that job. And then you can edit the disposition of fail and samples, and you can put whatever you need to put to explain why the sample failed, or if you used it, if you didn't use it. So like right here, where it says edit disposition, you can click on and they put materials not used on project. And then you could click save and it would save it. And you would go in through all your failing ones, and you would basically any failing sample that you have to write a disposition on, you could go in and edit the disposition, and then it would show up on on your ATM at the end. And then this is your sampling plan. So it shows you the frequencies, the bid, and what you need. And then you can create new samples from here that will show up on the ATM. And then let's see. And then each engineer, once you send it in, if you do the final ATM, you got the project engineer. They click on it and sign on it. Just if you're doing it, don't double click because you will sign it off twice. So just click it once. And then once the project engineer signs off on it, you have to send an email to the lab engineer to let them know, because the email system is not set up yet. But so you'll send an email to the lab engineer. The lab engineer will look it over. And then once he signs it off on it, he'll send an email to the area engineer, and the area engineer will click in and sign off on it. And like I said, if you want to add, you just got to go through this to make sure that everything says pass or fail. And if not, you have to put a disposition of why it is. And then you could do look into it. Maybe the lab didn't pass it on, and they forgot to do it, or something's missing. Usually the slump in there holds stuff up. But then once you get a full pass or fail, then then you go through the process of where everybody signs off on it. And then you can run the ATM again and then put final ATM. And then some people, what they do is when they create the sample, they create in the sampling plan, they'll create a code for like cross slopes and stuff to count their cross slopes to make sure it shows up on the ATM. There's a special code 888, something for that. And that shows the cross slopes that you have taken for that job, and it'll show up and it'll show how many you took for that job. You could do the same thing for your CCs and CAs. You could do the material testing, and then you could show that you took the CAs and CCs for that job, and that'll show up on there. What else we got, Les? Did I miss anything?
I think you covered most of it. That I can. It's kind of hard to keep up with what's going on out here, but I think the thing to know about or kind of one of the things we've been thinking through with adding the files to the form is kind of check with your district reps at the lab, whoever's kind of reviewing that ATM, and make sure you're putting it in a format that's easy for them to read or kind of at least do their checks, right? And so I kind of think of that in situations where, like when we used to turn in our 2059 or our ATM, it was a binder, and the binder would have tabs in it, right? Like section 203 and section 302 and section 502, right? So in my mind, the way I would want to do that is the files that I'd upload to that would have like all of my CDs and CAs and CCs would be I would guess digitally filed in those sections so that the lab person, right? So your file list would say you'd have a file that said 203, and it would have all your CDs for section 203, and same thing for 302. Your cement would be listed under that as well, and so that makes it a lot easier for the lab to go in and review it rather than going to each sample, looking up the sample and materials, finding the form where we uploaded it, right? So it's a lot more clicking for the lab to do. But if you take the time and put all that together in the file section of the ATM, it just makes it so much easier for the lab. And I think checking with them first and seeing what they want to see there, I believe District 2 has come up with some pretty good like protocols on how they want it. I know, Kevin, you might even speak to that on what Cameron has been asking for and what he's looking for. And that just makes it a little easier for both parties, right? So that thing gets, because the whole point here is we want these to go through quicker than in the past. And I've gotten feedback that they are like the digital signatures are really great. And it's just an email, the DLE or the area engineer can just log in, sign it, and be done with it instead of moving paper all over the state. So just calling ahead of time, finding out how they want it formatted and doing that for them really save some time. Kevin, if you do, you might be able to give some examples of what Cameron's been asking for in District 2 at the lab.
Yeah, so what Cameron's been asking for is basically if you want a if you got CCs for 501, you create a little ID, put all of the 501s in that one section, and then that basically when they go to look, everything for 501s in that one section. And then at the end of the job, he asked that everybody put like all your CDs in one location, just in case they miss something. You could go back and look in one location. He's been doing it like that. They've been asking for when you get to the 2059 and you got a CCs, let's say for one of your samples, what he's been doing is he's been asking you to upload the CC, and then when you create a form, you can create it under the material code. I think it's 8888, right, Les? If I'm not mistaken. And then you create it under that, and then basically you could do cross slopes. You could do almost anything. You could do the material test where it asks you a couple of questions about if you got a CCCA, and then basically upload all that in there. And then when they got it, they have all that information in there. And then for your asphalt, since asphalt is not in Site Manager, you won't get a pass or fail. It'll just say received a log, depending on if they scanned it in or not. And then what they do for that is when you're under the 501 section, you can upload all your mix designs, your pay calculations for asphalt, and anything else you got from asphalt, you could put it on the one and make it under 501. And then when they pull it up for 501, all that information's already there. And then they don't have to go searching for like lots or pay lots, and everything's there. And then that way they can easily check it once they're in the lab. Now, go ahead, Les. You was about to say something?
Yeah, so what Kevin brought up, I don't believe we've had a chance to go over on the webinar yet. And maybe I can do this next month, is the 888 material code he's talking about. So we went in maybe last month or the month before that and created a generic material code. And we've talked about one before. There is a generic material code in there called plant specified material, something along those lines. But this one is literally, it just says like generic material code. And what it's for is it actually follows our process, right, with the field global test attached to it. So just like you would do a CD or something along those lines now, or a visual sample that gets auto passed at the unit level, now you have this generic material code that you can add to the sample plan. And so you can upload a cross slope, like Kevin was saying, using that generic material code. And when you select the field global test and save that and send it to your unit lab and save it, it actually puts a passing sample in the ATM for a cross slope, because we've not had a way to deal with those kind of field tests before. So maybe I'll do a demo of that, or do some kind of workup on it so I can send that out. And that way it'll help you kind of in your building of the sample plan, account for those things that we are in transition for, right? So right now, sample plan is not, it's obviously not perfect. We're still working out some of the kinks, but we're also waiting for some of the features in contract administration that'll be coming to make it a little more efficient, right? And so we're putting some things in place that'll just help you get by until we get those things in place. So that'll probably be a topic for next month.
And I have it up on the screen right now, the 88
Oh,
number.
okay.
I pulled it up like I was creating a sample.
Oh, great. Thanks for doing that. Yeah, that's perfect. And so you can add that material code to any line item in the sample plan, and then it will show in the dashboard so you can create a sample from that material code. Now, the one thing I think, and I didn't mention this, and it would probably be better in a full demo, but the one thing is like, so say asphalt, you have two, or there's probably more, these are two on top of my head right now. You have like mixed temperature, right? When you take a temperature, and you have cross slope. Well, there's only one material code. And so you would be testing those under the same material code. And so your sample counts are going to count, it's going to add them together, right? If you had 20 temperatures and 20 cross slopes, it's going to show you have 40 samples. So it's not ideal, because at the end, you're going to have to go through and put those, count those samples up and say, okay, of these 40 samples, 20 of them are temperature, and that's correct. 20 of them are cross slope, and that's correct. And so those are some of the things we're still working out, but we're at least trying to give you something to use in the meantime, right? Thanks for bringing that up, Kevin. That's perfect.
Hey,
No problem.
last Kevin, I got a question on the lab stuff. I know I talk about it a lot when we talk about the lab, but when are they going to be going to HeadLight materials? Because we still get pushback from ours, want to go back to limbs. And that's part of our problem, is like we do it in HeadLight or materials, and we still have to go back and do stuff for them, and the old paper way.
So
Go ahead, Kevin.
I was gonna say, so far the lab is limited to what they can do in HeadLight.
Right.
So really all the lab can really do in HeadLight is the 2059, the sampling plan, and you can't enter no test right now in HeadLight. So the lab has to go through Site Manager to enter the test.
That's right.
So if you bring a sample in from HeadLight and it comes over to Site Manager, when they scan it in, they can scan it in and they can print out, if they have a form already, so like asphalt, like roadway, or concrete that has the forms, they can print that out. But as far as entering samples into HeadLight, that is not available at this time.
Right.
So Matt, just to tell you, like, as far as schedule goes, there's a little work that has to be done left for limbs. They have, I think we had like 300, a roundabout number, 300 test forms that had to be built. And so those are individual forms, just like the soil moisture density or the concrete cylinder form, but they're not all that advanced, right? There are some of them that are, some of them that aren't. HeadLight, in the meantime, has been building this really cool technology that makes it so that pretty much anybody at their company can build the form instead of a developer for HeadLight having to build it. So that really increased the amount of, it decreased the amount of time it takes to make those forms. And so they've built Kevin, what's the number now? Like 280 of those forms? I'd say like it's almost all of the forms have been built. And that is the majority of the LIMS system that Headlight's building. So like I don't want to give you a date like when that thing is going to
Oh, I
be
know.
done.
Well-
We're told by the end of the year we should be rolled out on everything, right? So it
Well-
should be done then. But there are some few things that we have to do, you know.
I've got guys that just have never opened Site Manager or LIMS because, I mean, we've been doing Headlight for all these years, and there's a wall between us and the lab because, you know, they won't even talk about materials or Headlight. It's always, well, you got to go do it in LIMS. So it's like, well, I can't even get these guys in. They don't even have a Site Manager ID. You know,
So yeah, I agree with you there, Matt. And it's something I've kind of picked up on lately as well is we've got people who, you know, we've been doing Headlight for 7 years now, right?
Yeah.
And so some of the early adopters like me or you know, even you, we had Site Manager. We know how to use Site Manager. We know how to use LIMS. But the people who have come in the past 2 years have never been in there. So
Right.
when everything doesn't work correctly, or you know, you might have to go do some work there, they don't know how to do the work in LIMS. And it's also kind of counterproductive to get them to learn that when in 7 months they're not going to ever use it again.
that's right.
So we are at a point there, and I get you. That's a pain point for now
Well, see,
that we're just gonna have to try to work through. I really don't have an answer for it, but I do
know,
agree with
I
you.
know.
It
It's
is
just- Like I said, I know I get frustrated with it because it's like we're talking two different languages sometimes within the
100%.
own office. But
Yeah,
and I'm the same way. I left and went to maintenance right before LIMS got pushed in. So I don't have any LIMS experience, and I have to fumble through it. But you know, Headlight materials and sample plan are great. But like I said, it's just like we're speaking two different languages up here sometimes.
it is. That's been the frustration between the lab and the P. It's not just District 5; it's every district.
Oh, I know.
And
I know that.
we're fighting through that. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious.
Well,
Like I said,
yeah.
I ask almost every time. So
Yeah. But please just be patient with us as we
Oh,
work
yeah.
through that
oh, no,
because
we are.
that's just what it's going to take to get us there. You know, like
And-
we try to handle little things as they come up. In fact, there's another thing going on right now. Headlight is about to start working on sample plans some more because we're getting lots of feedback. These little workarounds that we're putting in place are starting to cause some pain,
Yeah.
and you know we need to get that fixed. And so, yeah,
Well, it's
Working
definitely
through
going to
it,
be
man.
great in the long run, short term, long term. But I know I'm looking forward to it. I don't know about other folks, but I know I am. So
yeah, we appreciate that. I'm sure everybody is. They at least everybody at least wants to see the one system and know what we have to do. Right? We want to know what our boundaries are so we can play in them. So
yeah,
Yeah, and
appreciate that question.
we tested most of the forms so far. We just waiting for a few other ones to come in, and then once they come in, we'll test them. And then, like I said, hopefully by the end of the year they'll be out.
Kevin, I have a question about what you talked about earlier about putting all the CDs and CAs in one place so that the lab doesn't have to look for them. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that? Like, what do you mean? Clicking add file for each section or doing a big composite folder?
Yes. So what I would do to start off with is, so if you talk since you in O2, I would get with Cameron. Cameron does he's doing the ATMs for Headlight. I would get with Cameron, and then Cameron can tell you exactly how he wants it. But basically is you upload a file and you can put all the CDs in that one little section. Or you could put them all in one and have all your CDs in one section. But each
section, what do you mean by section?
Hey, Daniel. So what he's talking about there is like, so on your computer, right? You can create a file on your desktop that says 203 and that might not be a good example. Say 302 and you have all of your, you can have all your density sheets like scanned into it or your cement samples, all of that stuff, or your cement CDs, what is it, CAs that you need for cement. So you can have all those in one location and then open the ATM on your computer and there's an add file button at the bottom of it. And then you just grab that section 302 file and drop it in the ATM. So that's kind of the thing you get with the digital ATM 2059 that Headlight has is the ability to just add any kind of supporting documentation that you want. And so it kind of gives us the freedom to arrange that in a way that's easy for both parties to kind of, when I say both parties, I mean the lab and the PE office, to communicate what they need to get over there for it to be approved. Does that make sense? Like adding the file from your computer of all the CDs, CAs, or CCs.
So for the certs only, because like moisture density forms,
Yeah,
concrete roadway reports and stuff, that's all when you create it in Headlight Materials, that gets synced over anyway. So there's
that's
nothing in it, correct?
that's right.
You
That's all in there, and those are attached to sample IDs. The problem we have right now with the review of that, though, is that there's no way to click that sample from the ATM that brings you right to that form, and so it's really difficult for the lab. They're switching back and forth trying to review all of that. But again, Cameron might not want to look at every one of the soil moisture densities. He just wants to see a passing test, right?
Yeah,
So yeah. So
check
you
with
should be
Cameron
good.
first.
This is that's right. This is mostly for CDs, CAs, and CCs.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, don't we create a sample ID for the CA anyway, and as a field sample, and it automatically gets approved? So wouldn't that automatically sync anyway?
So, so that was the intention at first. We started giving out that recommendation that you attach the CDs via form to to the sample ID, and I still think that's a great practice to do. But what we're saying is that's difficult for the lab to review, and this is something we found out after the fact. Of course, we turned the first one in and it was like, wow, that's really hard to see. So we still like having that form with the CD attached to it because you're capturing that digitally at the point of delivery, right? As soon as you get that CD, you're uploading it into the system. But often that piece of paper is still brought back to the office and scanned in somewhere, right? And so we're saying that scanned in file is what the lab is going to review. Now,
Okay,
even though it's attached to the sample, which is great for an individual sample to go look at, it's not great for reviewing 30 of them.
gotcha.
So this is kind of, I want to say this is kind of new recommendation from us. Yeah, we at first we said just upload a form on sample ID. Now we're saying it's better if you have it in not necessarily both places. It could just be on the ATM at the end, but I do think it's good project documentation to have it attached to that sample as well. So
And
appreciate
you
that question. That needs to be clarified. And I appreciate that one.
and your asphalt, so your mixed designs for asphalt and your roadway reports, they do not come over, so you would have to upload them too. As of right now, they do not come over from LaPave into Headlight. So you still have to upload them to just like you would do a CC or CA as of right now. So just to let you know, Daniel. Does anybody else have any questions? Does Headlight have anything else to add, or are they going over something?
I think you covered most everything, Kevin. I appreciate you for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. I do have one question for Les.
Sure.
Are these, could we partner with you on capturing some of these best practices or recommended paths to doing things? Like my question was, when you said put all those documents in one file, are you saying you can drop the folder in? You don't have to pull in the individual documents?
Yes, that's right. The folder. Yep.
That's nice. So
I do have, in fact, I sent it to Kevin for this training. I just went through and I was going to send it to you guys, but I've not had a chance yet. So I have gone through and kind of outlined all of the steps needed to do an ATM. So I can just shoot that over to you. It's in my Google Drive. But
just
yeah,
always
but let's,
got to leave us out, Les. Just always,
no,
we're always the last to know.
I had you on my mind. I just have not had a chance to share it with you yet. Yeah.
Okay, just want to see what we could also do with it to put to consider in future training materials as well. I like when when what we tell users in a training or a webinar or a micro learning or what have you mirrors exactly what they're seeing
Yep.
from quarters, so that same words matter, and we have to say things the same way so that we're all following singing from the same hymn book.
Agreed. That's why I created it. We're on the same page as usual.
Many years of doing so. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yep.
That was great, Kevin. That was great to walk through it. I'm still getting more familiar with it. A long time ago, Kevin Adams taught me everything I knew about Site Manager. I think I need to come visit his shop and have him teach me a lot more. Lauren, let's go visit Kevin.
Yes. Yes.
And then after we hit Kevin Adams, we'll go harass Kevin Barbier and pick his brain for everything we need.
That's fine. Because I was there with Kevin when they were doing site manager from the beginning. So
Oh, wow. Wow. All right.
Yes,
Cool.
he was on the teams with me also too, getting site manager materials working. Kev, I do have a question for you. I saw I'm in Headlight Materials right now, how we've got that generic field sample, but it looks like we got another one. It says plans contract. I guess that would be for like a NS or a TS item, right? You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, I see. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Watch.
Kevin, I think that's what that's for is like the NS items or TS items. We were using that one originally
Yeah.
for kind of a generic sample ID,
Right.
generic material, but it did not follow the whole process. So you could not get a passing sample off of it because it had
Mhm.
specific tests like tied to it. But now
Right.
with the generic material code, you can attach field global to it and get an auto pass. So it actually shows up like it's supposed to and kind of saves you a few steps. Yep.
Okay. Okay, good.
Les, I want to put my vote forth that we would love for you to do more segments from the field and actually interact with users doing stuff, things in the field, because I don't know, that's always interesting.
Yeah,
What's going on
I'm glad
different
you're
projects for us that don't get out to projects as much as we would like to.
I have to say, this is a lot more fun than sitting in my office doing these. But I felt like this would be a little distracting as well.
You're a little Blair Witch, but not bad. It's not too distracting.
You know, I'm walking around out here like a nerd with my stabilizer, my gimbal stabilizer on my
I
phone.
knew
So
it. Fellow dorks
Oh.
unite. It's okay, Les. We're a lot of people doing the same kind of stuff.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, Les and Kev, I'm glad that we have this generic sample material now, because like I was explaining to Terry and Lauren, when we were setting up the site manager global sampling plan, that was our problem. How in the material sampling manual, that some of the things that's listed in there, it's technically not a material. Like to give you an example, in place measurements. You got your in place measurements, but that's technically not a material.
Yep.
It's a test.
That's exactly why it's there, Kevin. Hey, and just a little side note on that, do not use that material for a site manager sample. It was not set up in site manager with all of the associations. It is only there so it'll be available in Headlight for you to use. That's just something, it does take a lot more effort to build a material out in site manager. And so we just did the bare minimum and like got it there so that Headlight would be able to have that in their system. It's really all it's there for. So only for using in Headlight stuff.
Kevin, what you were looking at that Adobe PDF a little while ago.
Yeah, you want me to bring it back up?
Can you send that to everyone?
Yeah, that's the one Les was talking about.
Okay.
They got down and then they got basically what you need to do for a 2059 too. He sent a checklist in the
Okay.
email that he sent me. And this is the introduction to Headlight, basically telling you step by step kind of what it means, what like how to when you do the final ATM to record it, and then basically the forms, how to basically create the Headlight, pressing the green button. It tells you a little step by step on how to do it in materials, how to do it in field book.
Right. Are you going to send that?
Hey, Daniel, I just created that like 3 days ago. So we have not had a chance to get that out to anybody, but that was part of creating it. One, for us to have a guide when we do training, but two was to get you guys kind of a step-by-step or lessons learned, you know, and some best practices. So yeah, we can definitely send that out to everybody.
Thank you.
I'll attach it to the next newsletter.
Does anybody have anything else? Or
Nothing from our
There are
side.
if there are no other questions, I guess that's it. We can go ahead and call this one. Kevin, we really appreciate you coming on and training through that today. And I'm going to enjoy the nice weather out here on the project for the rest of the day. So
thank y'all very much.
appreciate
Thanks,
it, everybody.
Kevin.
Y'all have a good one.